you didn't get to have that experience.
If you're watching the first 24 hours and you think you're watching real people die, then that you deserve everything.
I'm gonna quote a great philosopher, and his name is Gregory DeSense, who once said to me, "Everybody meets a lie halfway." So I think there was that. Like, yeah, we were lying to ourselves. Like if we really slowed the fuck down and had that very rational conversation that you were having, you're absolutely right, RaShaun. But we kind of didn't want to.
You're at a movie.
We wanted to believe there was a Santa Claus. We wanted to believe that what we were watching could be real. Like there was just that part. Like we wanted to fool ourselves, and it scared the shit out of us. And it was like that weird sensation of being scared and having fun with it. So you're
honestly, in essence, that's what a horror movie is. I'm not challenging that. I'm saying people are saying what we are watching is real people dying. I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
But that's honest. I don't knock that because I think it's a particular kind of dense person that can't understand what they're watching. And if you can be engrossed no, seriously, I think the most imaginative people are the most intelligent people. And I think if you're going to say that you can honestly let yourself go, and it's same thing with me and The Thing. Like I was there because my friend was dating this girl in college and he wanted to bang her. So he's upstairs having a great time. I'm bored playing pool with shitty beer. And then The Thing is on. And you know what? In this environment, I let myself go into this film, and you're not really going to get into it if you don't.
Well, and it's like that, with the Blair thinking you weren't ever going to see Wilford Brimley again. Like that's the point. Right?
Well, I don't know if I ever did, but I'm just saying.
Quaker
this was after Cocoon. Don't forget.
This is bringing it into the modern time. Well,
right.
Have you seen Wilford Brimley?
I didn't get mad at people for being as into it as they were, but I had missed the boat. You're trying to, it's also probably the reason why I'm not that into Star Wars, because I saw it when I was a teenager, not when I was a little kid.
Unnecessary.
So I was like,
always, man, always, Jesus so Christ. Unnecessary. Always got to throw Star that Wars.
They're honestly, I would sit through a Blair Witch style Star Wars film because I would feel like it would at least, I mean, it would seem like an effort, whereas the Star Wars films don't.
It's fucking October.
Like, it's not.
Where you'll never catch an argument from me is that the downfall of Star Wars is sticking to one family in an entire universe. It just doesn't make sense.
All I know is October, we're talking horror, we're talking the shit that scares us, and somehow Greg still manages to shit talk Star Wars.
You know what scares Greg is actually finding Star Wars that he likes. That's probably scares the shit out of him.
That's gonna scare me. I'm gonna, you and I are gonna be on the phone, RaShaun, and be like, what the fuck?
Like, dude,
Greg's been taken over by the Thing. That's what's happening.
Honestly, I love my version of Star Wars. So
we're gonna end up, calling it. We're gonna end up showing up at Greg's house with a flamethrower when that day happens. Well, I don't know if that's the right segue, but with that, I do have to at least finally find out what was, since we know Blair Witch did not do it for him. Respects the Thing. 3 of Clubs. What scared the shit out of you? What movie really did it for you, and that you're still holding up as that pinnacle of horror?
This is the problem with going last. Is like I'm so far off my topics that I don't even know where to start. Like right now, my head's on like how could we pull that prank off? And I gotta say, it would have to be that we just leave charred skeletons on Greg's lawn, like as if we just got to Aunt Peru and Uncle Owen. Like that, I think that's how we would be able to pull that out. That's a good way to go about it. Fuck, now that's where my head's at. And kind of my problem always with any movie, horror movies, it doesn't matter, is I've always been plagued with a pretty effed up imagination, pretty strong imagination, and pretty persistent imagination. Sometimes it leads to good things. It allows for, I wouldn't call it quality or even good, but creative outlets. The other things kind of lead to where it becomes hard for me to not only accept reality, but to really push what I understand, mainly because I'm also the type of person that believes that humans really only experience probably about 1% about what's actually in the world and what exists and what's possible and blah, blah, blah. So you pair that with having a super weird imagination, it's a pretty strong one that's plagued me my entire life from, the average little kid stuff like, I had a nightmare, blah, 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 trying to sleep in the parents' bed and, having this the sort of archetypal parents where one parent's like fuck no and the other one's like yeah come on let little buddy stay here, he's scared, which funny enough that was switched in a lot of people's minds because I guarantee you they're probably thinking the parent that was cool with it was my mom. My mom was like, no, get that little bastard out of here, like he needs to learn how to sleep on his own. My dad's like, what, come on, he's scared, that's fucked up. And I'll get to my dad in a second and how he plays a huge role in it. But so from that kind of imagination, which I would argue is pretty average for a lot of kids, but it persisted into ways that are kind of, and I would have to argue outside of my own brain, sort of laughable, even for myself when I think about it, to like things like one time driving from Massachusetts to Nashville, I took the coastal route of North Carolina because I was thinking about going to visit some family, but I ended up having to abort because I ended up getting there way too late. And I just tried to beeline it to Nashville. Point being, is it took me through part of the coast of North Carolina, and it was during summer, at the end of the summer. So it gets really foggy and I'm on this single or 2-lane highway and I'm driving basically by myself and it's so foggy you can only see about 4 or 5 feet in front of you. And I'm legit freaking out about this is the fucking moment that a goddamn giant monster like fucking Godzilla comes out of nowhere and I'm the fucking person that finds it, but you're gonna find out about it because I'm the one that gets killed. Like that's where my imagination could kick into gear. Driving down the road and sincerely being scared about a thought of a giant monster coming out of nowhere, like Lovecraft Country just jumped in here like it's the fucking fog. And by the way, this is well before Cloverfield. I was doing this in 2000. I just checked. Cloverfield came out in 2008. It's that kind of weird imagination to things like realistic, real scary imaginations like, oh, are my friends talking shit about me when I'm not around? Like that's scary. Fuck, what the hell is happening? Or like, oh shit, is my girl really doing that? She said she was over here, but like those are real things. Or like, oh shit, do I have money in my account when I go out to eat? Like it's those kind of horrors that kind of really move into where my imagination as an adult kind of kicks in. And I'm saying all this because of that and a few other things I'm about to explain, I have a very weird bar as far as getting scared from horror movies. And it's hard for most classical approach to horror movies to scare me. In part, I have to say, and this is something that Josh touched upon, father figures. And I have two very interesting sort of influences on it. And one was one of my buddies. His dad used to always talk about a time where and by the way, this guy is a pretty hyper intelligent person, but back in postdoc school or grad school, I don't know how it works. I'm not that smart to understand even where you're going when you're that smart. But in one of those schools, him and his buddies decided to get fucking high on LSD and take him to go see a movie. And the movie was called Alien. Now they knew what was going to happen, so they were prepared for the fucking mad ass trip that's going to happen at the end, when my buddy's dad wasn't prepared for one of the pipes actually being an alien and coming out of nowhere and fucking scaring the shit out. My man was basically like, I almost had a nervous breakdown, but it was so fun because it was the scariest moment I've ever had in my life, and I'll never forget it. Also, if I'm going to talk about drugs and dad, now I'm thinking about it, it also reminds me of another friend's dad who fucking was on some heavier acid, like fucked up shit. And he decided to watch a horror movie, but then the next day he was in his mom's, I think it was some sort of horror movie that wasn't Exorcist, but something to that effect. And he was in his mom's church basement helping her clean, but he was still tripping because he was bored as shit. And he had like the biggest freak out in the world. So like I have those weird influences growing up, and like hearing it, that it takes a weird sort of sting out of the traditional horror movie. It's like, all right, yeah, like it's an experience, but it's not really scary. Like it's scary in the moment, but not necessarily long lasting as the way a lot of people always talk about or bring up Exorcist. How like there's legit fears that people have carried from that movie. Or you can argue what makes horror and how it actually affects you. Does it have to hit you on one sense, or does it need to hit you on multiple senses? So you can argue Exorcist hits people on multiple senses because it still sticks with them in that way. The other influence, as far as a father figure, is my own, my dad, who he, for a lot of different reasons, and I'll continue bringing this up because it's just reality. As a Black man, especially a Black man coming from the South, horror was a totally different thing to him. So he also loved movies as much as he loved history. So he loved to when he was growing up, go to movie theaters and watch Dracula. He would talk about it all the time and how it would give him jump scares. But he would also laugh after it. Like, because he was there to feel the jump scare. He was there to have that entertainment. It was always entertainment. So he always approached it that way. And because he always had that, I always grew up watching my father, who had no problem exposing us to horror movies that were often rated R, even when he had to go and acquiesce to his 12-year-old son to bring him to a horror movie. But he didn't have a babysitter. So that also meant he had to bring his 5-year-old son. So his 5-year-old son had to sit in a movie theater, or which what happened to me when Aliens happened. And I was scared as shit the whole time. And I could hear my dad as I was covering my eyes, trying not to watch this fucking movie as a 6-year-old, being scared as my ass out can be. My dad would be like, ah, but then he'd start laughing. Like, oh shit, they got me on that one. So like that sort of ingrained me to understand, and also paired with lessons that he had to teach me growing up and as I became older, and why my mom would be deathly ill of me ever being outside with a gun. Look no further than Tamir Rice. So me outside playing with a toy gun, that was my mom's horror. And my dad had to talk me through that and understand that, allowed both my parents to have a very interesting approach to expose me to horror movies, in the sense that by the time I was 8 and 9, I had already watched movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, movies like that, and way worse, way less production, to the point where by the time it got to things like Exorcism, it wasn't even a matter of being scared or not being scared. I was there to see if it was entertaining. And that's basically what ends up happening to me with almost all horror movies. I will get scared. There are jump scares, but it's always about entertaining. So it's never going to last unless it can invade reality. And when it invades reality, that's where I get fucked up. So one example, I was going to say it was the grandfather of The Thing, but as Josh adequately pointed out, it actually was a different movie. But Invasion of the Body Snatchers always fucks with me, because to me, the best part of that movie is leaving you with the understanding that you'll never understand who actually may be this alien, part of the alien invasion. Or, and I always get laughed at, arachnophobia. Arachnophobia fucks me up for a lot of different reasons. One, if you just know the reality of how bad our port system is, you also understand that we get a lot of produce from outside countries or everywhere that actually don't get inspected the way we think we do. Also, when you break down the reality that spiders outnumber us 2.5 million to 1, it's not that actual hard to understand that there's probably a few that can take out a town and no hard problem. So you introduce those two factors and then you put it into play. It's not hard to believe that all of a sudden we have an invasion of fucking spiders. I know I went over time, Josh, but I got a few different things that you can jump in at any time. But the funny thing is, it intersects with my parents at the same time, because my parents, seeing how freaked out I was and doing weird things like taking a shower and only covering one side of my face so I'd make sure I could see what the fuck was coming out the spout, make sure it wasn't a spider. They're like, you know what? We're going to fucking help our kid. We're going to send them to fucking buttfuck New Hampshire and have them go to camp for 2 fucking weeks, where, by the way, you're just going to be surrounded by giant spiders. So he'll either come out of it with a psychotic break or he'll be stronger. And they're kind of right. I came out with a pretty cool understanding of spiders.
So your parents tried to cure you of your fear